Alrighty, so today we're going to be testing out this section of an aspis. This is made the same way as my reproduction, which is very similar to the archaeological find held in the Vatican Museum. It's essentially made of buttered and glued pine that is now laminated with glued and painted linen, and then on one section I have added about 0.3 millimeters of bronze, as some aspides would have been coated in a very thin layer of bronze. We're going to be testing it with a multitude of weapons. We've got an archaic era javelin, to see what a thrown javelin would do. We're also going to double this up as a spear and stab it. And we've also got Marcus over here with his bows and arrows. So Marcus, if you could just sort of talk a little bit about what these are.
What we have here are three-vaned Scythian style bronze tipped arrows, and I have one more of a leaf-shaped Greek style arrow. And we'll be using a bow, which is probably a pretty good example of what an Eastern bow would look like that a Persian might use. This is 35 pounds, but their bows could go as high as 100, more than 100 pounds. That wouldn't be uncommon. But smaller bows are also possible. So we figured this is good enough for our testing.
And specifically, you said sort of for mounted archers as well. We
yeah, mounted archer might be even lighter.
Lower, so it's the lower sort of realm of the historical lens, I guess, but it's still a historical used bow that would come up against one of these. So obviously there are going to be a few issues with the tests. We're not physically holding a shield. My patch might not be perfect, but we're going to basically put it in the straw bale in hopes that the straw bale gives it a little bit of give, because of course the body would move as it's hit. But we just want to sort of see what happens. You know, do blades get stuck in spears? Will your arm get punctured really easily? How much does the bronze change? Is this dome perhaps, you know, deflective? And that's what we're going to see. So we're going to give it a few tests. I think we're going to start with your archery.
I think that's right. Wood first?
Sure.
Okay.
Ooh, so breaks the arrow.
Breaks the arrow.
That's what we thought would happen.
Yeah.
But let's see, does the arrow go in?
And that's a pretty thick part of that shield.
That's right in that dome. Yeah. It's not gone through in that spot. Okay. So it's basically been stopped. You can see where that arrowhead's gone in and the shaft's kept moving, and that's what snapped that. So that's pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
And this one you actually did go in, but you hit the top of the piece. But your arrowhead
is deformed?
It's a little bit, but it could still do some damage.
Let's try it. Let's see that one. It's possible.
Ooh, nice.
I don't think that went in at all.
I don't think that's poking through.
No.
No, it's not. It's not. That's still in a decently thick part. It's just as that curve comes over. Right. But that's still actually not poking through. I thought it would be poking through. So if you want to put the camera, actually come and look in there just so that they can see that it's not poking through. So far, nothing would really be affecting the guy holding it. You got a little bit extra weight.
Sure.
But if anything, it's going to make it more uncomfortable for the Persians to clash into me.
Yeah. It's not like having a javelin stuck in your shield, for sure. All right, so how about metal, or do you want to go for the top of the dome?
Yeah, you could try the bronze, see what happens with the bronze. Oh!
Wow.
I was not expecting that.
And that just deformed, I mean, that just snapped off the tip, which went somewhere. I saw it fly this direction, so it's gone.
But let's see, that didn't even poke through. That's where it hit. The bronze isn't penetrated.
So I'm going to say, if that didn't penetrate, the Greek leaf head isn't going to do anything.
Isn't going to. I was not expecting that at all. Yeah. That is and
I thought it would at least punch a little hole.
That's 0.3 millimeters of bronze. That's very, very thin.
I was at full draw, and these are heavy arrows.
I was not expecting that.
Now, again, with a 75-pound, 100-pound, 120-pound bow, sure, you could do something more, but still, even if you got through the bronze, we still don't get through the wood that well.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's like, even if I doubled or tripled the poundage, I'm not sure.
But yeah, I was not expecting. Sure. I was expecting it to poke through a little bit and not go through. Obviously, I was not expecting a full deflection and an arrow shatter. Yeah. And again, I think that also almost emphasizes the idea of very thin armor, almost full ricochet deflection.
Now we think of like a war bow, like an English war bow, but they have iron or steel head. They're not bronze. These are very soft.
Relatively. Well, especially at that power. Right. Yeah, bronze isn't weak, but it's weaker than like a tempered iron or steel.
And we break the shaft before we break the heads even now. So
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm really interested to see what happens if you manage to hit it in the thinner section of the aspis. Did that hit the rim?
Hit the rim. But,
I reckon it's going to go through the rim.
I don't know, man.
It did not?
It didn't. I mean, I can even see the sand mark at the top of the shaft. So, I mean, I'm as drawn as I can't draw much farther on this bow. I just would have to go to a higher pound weight, really, at that point.
I think that's interesting. So yeah, I think a higher poundage bow, like a 75 pound, would probably be poking through at this point. But even, what was that you said, 40 pounds?
Yeah, like 35, 40 pounds.
So it's still a decent bow that you'd see used. And the fact that it's deflecting off and not going through the shield is quite a promising. I feel safer, you know.
For the bronze facing, I would feel pretty invulnerable, frankly. And even if it had penetrated, would it be penetrating to a lethal?
I don't think so. And that's the thing. Even if your arm gets stabbed even half an inch, that's going to hurt. It's going to be annoying, but it's not going to stop you.
It wouldn't kill you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have more arrows?
That's the only 4 that I have that's Scythian type. I actually feel that I have this one. I already know it won't do anything, but I'm going to give it a try.
Is that just because it's slightly less sharp as well?
It's significantly less sharp, but also its shape. So these other ones are so at such a nice acute angle. They really have a smaller surface area. This one has a broader surface area at the tip. Right. So I doubt it would go through.
So probably
But there is a weight difference that I believe that these, I wrote it down, they might be 9 grams. So I'll have to give you the numbers at the end, but those are probably around 9 grams. And I think this one was heavier, like 11 grams.
Okay.
Will that make a difference? Maybe.
Well, let's see. Ooh, interesting. So that didn't hit the bronze, but that's still deflected.
Right.
Okay.
Didn't destroy it, but it did bend it, significantly.
Very interesting. Okay, so I think next up, do we want to try and remove the arrows before we do javelins?
I think let's give it a try.
Yeah, okay, let's see. That's really interesting. I was expecting some of them to poke through. I really was.
I think you're going to have to leave those in for your close-ups at the end because there's no way they're coming out without a pair of pliers.
So this is an archaic style spear. As we understand it, lots of archaic hoplites actually carried essentially javelins into battle, sometimes multiple, which is a sort of interesting take that we don't typically see in the classical period. And something else that is attached to these is what's called an ankyle. This is essentially a loop which gives you a lot more momentum with the throw. You can imagine it essentially gives it a sling effect. To try and simulate a hoplite throwing a javelin, I'm actually going to do it in kit. I'm not going to wear a helmet, but I'm going to hold the shield. I'm going to be in the armor because it will slightly limit my mobility with the throw. And this is when we get to see how good my accuracy is, which I think, spoiler alert, it's not. So we might be here a while. Let's see. So I think lots of the reasons with this ankyle is it allows you to get more power without exposing yourself a lot. So almost in a way you can, without exposing, get quite a powerful throw still. Ah. Oh, come on. Oh, there we go.
Ooh. All right.
That barely went in at all.
Yeah.
Now, the point of this isn't super, super sharp, but it's enough to make the javelin stick, though. So I know my point was, it's still sharp, but it's not as sharp as the sides. But that's gone in. Let's see how far that went in. Oh, a quarter of an inch, maybe? About that far. Okay, let's see. Ooh, did that hit the metal and then deflected off? Interesting.
There's some mark on the metal, that's it.
Is there a dent on the metal? I think I can just about see.
Was there a divot? Oh, a little bit.
Little bit?
It cut through, actually, a small part.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay.
Yeah. There was a one. I put the picture of the there was a long thing.
Yeah, good enough. Ooh, that hit the bronze again, though, I think.
Can I take one?
Yeah. Oh, I keep getting like right on the the edge of it.
But it still shows that it will deflect it, right?
Yeah.
And I want to try a stab as well, just spear stab it. But yeah, we'll let Paul have a go.
Yeah, maybe I should just stand a little closer.
Oh, are you okay? But again, it's just bouncing off of the bronze.
You got that on film.
Look at so that's where you hit there, Paul. You penetrated the bronze, not through, and it hasn't really gone into the linen, I don't think. That bronze is really just making weapons bounce out.
Can we do me a favor? Can I just real quick? Can I try a stab because that was about as hard as I could throw. Let's see the difference between throw and stab.
Sure.
Very blingy, very nice.
Well, there goes that tree.
Hey, you and I almost at the same time. So it
didn't get stuck,
didn't get stuck.
It's very well made.
but
It went through the bronze, but didn't
not
go.
out.
Is there a bulge on the back?
No?
Yeah, that's excellent.
I was expecting things to be poking through, 100%. I feel bad for this tree. I'm going to try and hit it here, which should be the thinnest point. Not through. Wow.
Might I dispatch him as well?
Yeah, sure. They're going deep. It's just not enough to go all the way. Wow.
Not even that's like very blue.
It's just bumping slightly. Really interesting. So it's just enough to pop. Now, in one way, it means your weapon doesn't stick, but it just bounces straight out. Yeah, really interesting. I'm gonna move the bronze to the side and see if I can get through, because it is the thinnest in the middle and it gets progressively thicker. So I'm gonna see if I can. By the way, I thought that some of these would be poking through.
Yeah.
To be honest, maybe I was a little thicker than I should be, but even still. No, it's not through. Wow. Yeah, I was not expecting that. So the only ones that could get through were the arrows. Even them, not very much.
Not even dimple. Yeah, that's excellent.
I think maybe I should have thinned the slab a little bit, because it's thicker on one side than the other. So I'm going to try and hit this bit.
Definitely within the realm of what would have been.
Yeah.
I think our problem is actually more the spear.
But it's a little bit too blunt.
This is an archaic spear, so it's not as heavy, and maybe not quite as sharp as it could be. But really, it's the weight. And the 9-foot spears are insane. So
Yeah, so pretty conclusive, really. I thought that these would be a lot more, things poking out. But I think Paul's right. I think if you have a heftier spear, like a slightly more sharp tip, my tip's rounded a little bit, the sides are really sharp. But I think you would see some blades poking through with bigger spears, more mass behind them. But that's really, really interesting to me, that the only ones that really stuck through with some of the arrows. Right, we got one on the rim sticking out, and there's a little lump here, but it's not poked through, it's just pushed the wood out.
dimple.
And that dimple's from a spear? Yeah. So really quite strong. I feel more safe actually with my Aspis, especially as it's built the same, after those tests. But yeah, so really, really interesting. I think a higher poundage bow would go through.
Yeah, high poundage bow, definitely. And like I said, a larger late classical dory, which is heavier, narrower head, probably go through, but again, probably not that much, right? So you're talking about maybe wounding the forearm.
Yeah, but not reaching, by no means reaching the body.
And that's one of the things. So if you look at the shield, right, the depth of this shield, I got to go that deep just to hit his armor. Right? And the thing about penetrating any kind of armor is it's not just like you hit it and you go, it's not binary, you're not in or out. The depth of penetration is going to always be dependent on the strike. So you have to do quite a deep strike to get to
Just the armor as well, yeah.
Exactly.
And I think this is also interesting to see, that is always the argument of what's more important, your cuirass or greaves. If your torso is that covered by a massive shield, there, I think, a very real argument as to why you might prioritize under shield as opposed to behind, because this is really a secondary fence defense to this.
Right.
This is that if I've messed up, I'm getting hit in the torso, right? So
Yeah, it's more of a question with this is if you've opened your shield and I hit you.
yeah,
So I got hit here yesterday in that group.
I did too. I got hit in the abdomen. Yeah.
So that's it when you're opening your shield and moving around. Then you get it. Yeah.
So really interesting. I think it would be interesting to test it with a slightly sharper spear and a slightly more poundage bow. But
See the trilobate Persian arrowheads, right?
and these things are really sharp as well. Marcus has those really sharp.
And you can see how, I mean, this is, nice damage here, but it doesn't go through all the way to the inside.
And importantly, that's fixable.
Yeah.
Right? Laminate some more linen in there, and
Is this pine or just
it's pine.
it's pine? Yeah.
Yeah.
So even pine. Poplar would be even better. So what poplar does is these wounds they're like springy, so they catch the blade as it goes through. Yeah.
Right. That's really interesting because I believe the Vatican is pine.
No,
Pretty
very
sure.
poplar.
Is it poplar?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The only thing I know of that we have pine is that one spear shaft.
Yeah.
In the sword, it's a pine
Yeah.
piece. Yeah.
Typically, water woods are a lot more springy.
Yeah, that's what we're told. Use water woods, willow, mostly willow in Greece, poplar in Etruscan shields.
Really interesting. I think that's a very
great.
cool result. Definitely different to what I was expecting. I was expecting little pokes of javelin heads coming through, especially from the throws. And for me, what surprised me the most was the effect of the bronze making things just bounce out.
What I thought was going to happen, it did happen to a little extent, is I thought that this wood was going to crack.
Yeah.
But you notice the linen keeps the wood from cracking. If this was just wood, it probably would have cracked. But this composite structure helps support the wood and keep it from flexing too much and cracking.
Well, it's essentially a fiberglass, right? You've laminated it with glue and a textile, which has really added a lot of strength for that wood.
And that's the thing about it. The laminated textile is the properties of it completely fill the gaps in the properties of the wood. So wood is very stiff, but it wants to crack. Whereas this stuff is under tension, right? So it's not going to let it crack.
Next up, Marcus is going to use a Persian sort of battle axe, which is a really interesting weapon. This was filmed after we forgot we had this, so sorry for the worst quality in audio and video. But this was quite an interesting result, and very similar to later medieval weapons as well, like the Bector Corbin, the Crow's Beak, that basically have a punch that's designed just to punch through. And this was the only weapon that was able to actually get through the shield, and even still it'd be uncomfortable, especially if it hits your forearm, but it's not going to take you out of the battle. But this actually cracked the wood quite a lot as well.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And that was right in a glued seam too. Right there.
And you see, it deflected it out to the side a little bit as soon as I went in there, because once it found the seam, then my whole arm
That's cracked.
follows it.
It's cracked the wood.
Oh yeah.
Now that probably wouldn't happen on a full shield,
Right. Well,
but it would
know.
probably crack a bit of it, but
Right.
not all the way.
this wouldn't happen. The hole it would still punch, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think this would
I
happen.
think it would still punch, 100%. That's how deep did it go?
Well, the paint is up to here, so that far plus
Plus a little extra.
maybe almost a centimeter. So painful. Super
not dead.
painful. You wouldn't kill you, but
Interesting.
So overall, I think a really interesting test. It definitely went differently to how I hypothesized it to go. Now, there could have been a few improvements with our test, of course. I think I should have thinned my shield slab a little bit more, though certainly parts of it were thin enough and definitely not out of the realm of possibility. And I think for our purposes, it still gave us a pretty good impression of what would have happened. If we used a higher poundage bow, probably some of the arrowheads would have poked out a little bit more, but not enough to really maim the wielder even more so, unless it happens to hit their forearm, in which case it's certainly not a fight-ending injury. I think what was most interesting about this test was the effect of the very thin layer of bronze, which was between 0.3 and 0.5 millimeters. The effects of that essentially making arrows and even javelins just spring off of the shield was really interesting, and shows how much protection a very thin layer of metal can add to these things. And I think something else that's incredibly notable with this test is that about 90% of these damages are quite easily repaired, which means that these shields probably aren't getting replaced after every battle, maybe after a few, but you can quite easily patch these up and use it for another battle. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video.